Marty and I put this talk together, as you probably all saw, Eat Your Way to Vibrant Health, a Paleo 101 talk, because she and I have both been paleo for a couple of years now and have found it to be tremendously beneficial in our lives, and so we wanted to express that to you as well. And that's what we're going to try to do. So if you're wondering what paleo is, or what it means in 21st century America, or what the theory behind it, why should you care, all of that, we're going to try to cover all of that in probably the next 35 to 40 minutes. And to the extent possible, I would ask you to hold your questions till the end. We are going to leave some time for Q&A, and if there's too many questions, we'll break up into two groups and we'll answer questions individually, otherwise we'll do them together. And so the way we're going to try to cover this today, Marty is going to set the framework to understanding paleo, to understanding how this concept came about, and after that I'm going to move into talking about the nitty-gritty of what to eat, some case studies, and the action plan. If you decide that this resonates with you, how you can take it and move forward. With that, I would like to introduce Marty. Marty has an MA and an MS from University of Colorado Boulder, where she studied music ethnology, as well as did a lot of research into sort of paleo, primal, and ancestral health topics. She has a paleo coaching service called Ecotone Wellness, as well. She's also a voice and music coach. She attended the Ancestral Health Symposium in 2011 after she'd already been paleo for about a year by then. And as part of our presentation today, she's going to talk about her story and her transformation through paleo. And with that, I will turn it over to Marty and let her do the honors.
Thank you, Toffler. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify, University of Colorado Boulder, back in those days, that was in the early 90s, very few people actually worked with paleo. It was interesting. I had an interdisciplinary degree, and I was very fascinated in physical anthropology, cultural anthropology, and of course the ethnomusicology. I was also in the School of Music. And with this interdisciplinary degree, I had Dr. David Van Gerven as my thesis chair. That undergraduate had a thesis that I had to write because it was interdisciplinary. And it was quite fascinating. I was just called to paleo back in those days, but Boyd Eaton had written a book called The Paleo Prescription. It was in my library, and I cherished my library. Somewhere along the way, pre-internet, I didn't realize the significance of it. Somewhere along the way, I gave it away. I read the first chapter or so, and I drank the Kool-Aid living in Boulder, Colorado, and I got involved with vegetarianism and veganism. And I say that lightly to all my vegetarian friends. But I actually then started gaining weight at that point. For about 26 years, I had always been a thin adult. And then I hit veganism and vegetarianism. And I made a mess of things, just partly because it's really, in my estimation today, it's unsustainable. And there's certain reasons why it's very hard to do a vegan or vegetarian diet and get the kind of macronutrients and micronutrients that you need. So, at any rate, so University of Colorado Boulder, Dr. David Van Gerven, that was an undergraduate. My master's degrees, one was at Regis University and the other one was here, and that's what brought me back to Arizona, down to Arizona, University of Advancing Technology in Tempe. So, at any rate, that's a little bit of the odd background, and frankly, it does, in my mind, kind of, I know it can be a bit of a stretch. You would think, how could paleo impact voice and piano? But both of those take incredible mental clarity and physical aptitude. And my students, many of them, they have problems with their breathing or their lung capacity, and paleo has been a huge help with that. So it's just been fantastic. So About 20 years ago, exactly, I gained that weight, and I was very, very sad about it. And it took until I went gluten-free that I was able to lose weight. And we will talk a little more about my Paleo Miracle story. I did get in the book, The Paleo Miracle, and this has been fantastic. A number of people, we all have found ourselves through a Facebook group called the International Paleo Movement Group, or IPMG for short. And there we have a chance to say, what are we talking about these egg whites? How much macronutrients do we get with fish or beef, or should we go grass-fed? There's so many questions. So I want to try to just give you an outline to some degree. You will have questions, and as Toffler mentioned, we'll talk about them later. But actually, do feel free to chime in and just say, oh, I have a burning question in that regard. So do, if you have a question, you can help me focus this in. Because the IPMG, the group, has been a huge help in confusing me incredibly. And to realize people are dealing with hormonal issues, people are dealing with thyroid, obviously sugar issues, and all different kinds of situations that have impacted their wellness. So let's take a look back. I have this form that I kind of passed around for everybody, and some of you will be sharing it. But I wanted to point out that paleo is much more than about losing weight. So the paleo diet is actually trademarked. That term is trademarked by Lauren Cordain, who is a researcher who got onto the paleo bandwagon maybe 15 years ago after Boyd Eaton, and he's done a great job of bringing things forward in terms of paleo. So he trademarked that partly because a lot of charlatans, now that it's a little bigger, are just going in. They're actually even taking complete cookbooks and pretending they're theirs. They have websites, and also they're saying, well, we're all unique snowflakes, anything goes with paleo. And we're like, no. There's a few specific tenets that earmark a paleo diet. So what might those be? So we can learn a little bit about those by defining why we call it even paleo diet. We also might call it primal, we might call it ancestral, and again, some people might say, well, I call it primal because of this, and someone else says I call it paleo because of that. Okay, so, but specifically, paleo is short for the Paleolithic era. And as far as human beings, we, just like us today, have been here 1.5 million years. We're not talking about any kind of evolution from other primates or anything like that. So 1.5 million years is an incredible long period of time that you would live in a specific environment, and that environment would force you to adapt to that. If it's hot, cold, if the water is scarce, if sugar is scarce, which it always was, because we actually ourselves have bred things like our fruits and even vegetables and even meats, I guess, for that matter, to have more sugar content, you know, corn-fed. We have more calories because there is a human imperative to absolutely adore sugar. And that is because during that 1.5 million year, the bulk of our ancestry, prior to the Neolithic period, which is the onset of agriculture, prior to that time, calories were scarce. And we had, and I remember in 1990, I went, what? What are you saying? Excuse me, around 99, I was in a calorie restriction group. And I was trying to understand. I was, of course, wanting to lose weight. At that time, I weighed about 32 pounds more than I do now. And I was really wanting to lose that weight. And I really believed in the concept of calorie restriction. So just in the beginning of lists where everyone talks to each other, you get a sense of everybody's personality, and the scientists among the group go, "You idiot, where is your proof?" You know, that type of thing. At any rate, someone said, you are biologically impelled to fatten up before the famine, the winter. That's just going to be, that's life. So that's part of the reason. So for me, I kind of really appreciated that, because to some degree that got that off of my shoulders. I recognized that if I had a problem with sugar, it was not because there was some moral weakness in myself. It was because I was a human being. So that really hit me. And so I continued to study caloric restriction for a number of years. It's taken me, again, it wasn't until 3 years ago about that I discovered actually what we term paleo. So let's look at the definition again. So we have pre-agriculture. So we like to say things like, oh, now that we process things so incredibly, these foods are bad for us. So we know not to eat them. Well, it actually goes farther back than that. 10,000 years ago to 12,000, give or take, the advent of the Neolithic era, when agriculture was introduced, right then and there, things started to change. We started to, because it was natural, we said, you know, this fibrous, these bitter fruits and vegetables we're eating, I mean, come on, we can do better than this. So, for instance, the regular banana is massively different than what we think of the banana today. The real banana, the real corn is massively different. We couldn't eat it today. So our sensitivities are towards a more gluten-filled and also sugar-filled diet. So therefore, I end up sounding a little severe when I say no gluten, because that's a mutation of the grasses that would have been around. Possibly we had a little bit of grasses, but we never stored them. I don't know, like a cat chewing on a little grass. You know, the seeds, the definition of hunter-gatherer is that we hunted, we had the spears, we had the adults, we had our technologies for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. We had fire, and we had our ability to gather. So those foods that we ate, and this body is similar. Or does anyone have any idea if there's been any mechanism that has had us evolve over the last 10,000 years so that we today have different bodies than, say, someone 50,000 years ago?
The wheel.
Pardon?
The wheel.
The wheel. Oh, no, I'm thinking about the evolution in the body. Oh, there's lots of, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
Physiology, you mean?
We have got more allergies or less?
No, I'm saying your question is about physiology.
Yes, physiology. There really isn't anything. Maybe a little bit with dairy. Maybe some of us can deal with dairy more than someone 50,000 years ago.
Actually, I think, based on my research, some alleles which confer tolerance for dairy and wheat products has evolved in about 400 generations. I'm sorry, maybe 200 generations in Europe, where it didn't really evolve in other places. So that's been an example of natural selection occurring very quickly within humans, just as the butterflies did during the Industrial Revolution.
So you might see
There's a
Europeans be able to handle something that people off of the savannah couldn't.
I'm suggesting.
Yeah, and again, and so that would be something for us to look up and see what the current wisdom is regarding that. But for the most part, we haven't changed that much. Or at any rate, that is the premise of the paleo or the primal people, saying we're not built broken today. We are just simply in an environment that isn't in line with how we were made. We became how we were in response to the lifestyles that we had to have in order to survive in a more primitive environment. So Toffler's going to help us with ideas on actually, so what does that mean in terms of what we eat? So let's look at this page again. So we look at paleo. So if you came here for weight loss issues or diabetes issues or heart issues or just general vitality or longevity, generally help seekers, people who are looking for help in getting better, tend to have a specific goal in mind. And so those people who actually come through the doors and actually sit down and take a Sunday afternoon to study a little bit about their own physiology and what might help are help seekers looking for answers. Now what you will find here is that paleo is much more than about just weight loss. Now, because of some of the problems associated with our healthcare system, and doctors tending to, and again this is a kind of it doesn't mean to be a blanket statement, but doctors tending to treat a specific disease or system rather than the whole body. Those answers are not as holistic as saying, well, let's look at inflammatory aspects. How might inflammatory situations or, chronic stress, many of you might have heard of Robert Sapolsky's wonderful work on chronic stress and how that isn't indicative of what we normally would have experienced. We would experience very intense bursts of stress. We wouldn't have the chronic stress that we have. That makes a chronic systemic situation going on in our body. So actually the paleo diet addresses reducing stress in the body. It's huge. So we talk about sleep. We talk about a variety of different ways to reduce stress. And as I mentioned before, hormonal dysregulation, problems with hormones can come up. Again, there are different ways to address those situations. So for instance, Diane Sanfilippo's book, Practical Paleo, is a wonderful book to assist us in looking at specific things, neurological situations, longevity situations, sugar, stress, a variety of different situations, and then you fine-tune your paleo approach to address that issue. Now, the reduced toxins is huge, and also notice on the bottom of this handout I put down that we humans are supraorganisms. And the reason why I have this focus on here, if one were to learn a little bit about the paleo diet, is there's a real emphasis on the problem that in our society now, given our technological environment versus a Paleolithic environment, we have a lot of problems with the microorganisms in our guts. And we also are eating gluten, most of us, and the microvilli in our gut gets mowed down and or stuck down, and we can't then therefore absorb the nutrients. So as some people say, it's not what you eat, it's what you digest. It's what you're actually able to absorb. So much of the paleo approach would be healing the body so that your microvilli is very happy. And I'm working to try to figure out, well, I'm going to take probiotics and prebiotics to assist me in making sure that my gut is very happy, which, by the way, pre-paleo and as a gluten eater, I just had a horrible time with my stomach. And after paleo, it's changed dramatically. But still, nevertheless, it's only been less than 3 years that I've been doing paleo. Am I healed? Is my gut healed? So we look at evidence and to ask ourselves, what can we do to work on our microvilli? And I'm a little confused to some degree, because then you say to yourself, okay, well, we want the bad bacteria and the bad viruses, we want to kick them out. I think of us as kind of a condominium complex. We have the lovely people who take care of their little houses, and they also maybe they have gardens. They actually give us stuff. So the good bacteria actually gives us stuff. We need them. A lot of some authors say that they kind of stand at the entryway of your large intestines, and they shoot down the bad guys, the toxins, and the different different things that come to attack us. And then, but then the bad guys get in there. They get so overgrown that they can talk to us and say, don't you want a little more sugar? We like sugar. Can you give us more sugar? That's how we live. And this whole concept that something exogenous to us, inside of us, could make us change our minds. Which there is a wonderful Radiolab episode on parasites. If you love Radiolab, go to their website and put in parasites, the one from 2009, and you will freak out. You will know why I'm a little confused about my microbiome. But at any rate, so we want to keep the Hell's Angels out of our condominium complex. And we also want to understand them so we can tell them, hey, go somewhere else. Because I think all of us know as adults that our bodies are being assaulted every moment of every day. A stronger immune system is able to hold viruses. I mean, everyone knows if you go to work and you're the healthy one, everyone's just dying around you, you know, getting the cold and the stuff, and you're just like, eh, I don't have that problem. So what we're working is an increased immune system. Reduce toxins in that we're able to keep them out, or we don't put them in the first place. So again, Toffler will be talking about the macronutrients. You might have heard paleo is more fat and protein centric than carbs, but we certainly eat carbs, but we look for quality carbs. I am absolutely, well, like a lot of paleo wellness coaches and authors, we pretty much just say gluten, sorry, bye-bye. It's just not, it's not a food. I don't want to eat this chair. I don't want to eat bread. I just don't. And in my case, there's a real physiological reason why it's not a problem. I have been on Diane Sanfilippo's 21-day food detox, excuse me, sugar detox. Wasn't food, or I probably wouldn't be here if I didn't eat food for, I've been doing it for 2 months now. But it finally kind of came around for me. As most people getting involved in paleo, they're just really excited, they're feeling better, losing a little weight, or getting stronger, their muscle mass is improving, and bone density and all this kind of thing. And then, a couple months later, they start eating sugar again. You know, it's kind of like, there's nothing wrong with jelly beans, but except for a massive amount of sugar. With the detox program, I found my taste buds, my taste receptors modulate differently. So now pecans taste sumptuously sweet. So there's a variety of different paleo-approved tricks and tips to assist you. Besides, I've mentioned, you know, I just want to say Rob Wolf is awesome. At the Ancestral Health Symposium, I got a chance to meet everyone, and you know, almost everyone. But I went around and just tried to get a pulse of things. You know, Gary Tobbs has really helped us. I don't know if the guy who wrote Wheat Belly was there, but Boyd Eaton, all of the old standbys. But also I met the Whole 9 people, the Whole 30 program. Very similar to the Cleanse program, and they give you step by step. If you don't want to figure out all the minutia on your own, you can join some of these programs and they can assist you. Buy their book or go on the Facebook page and say, hey, I have a problem with this. Is this a problem? Or can I go ahead and eat this? As it turned out for me, I tend to kind of stay away from sugar, fruit even, just because it's really not that natural. In terms of it's plump and sumptuous and all that. I don't want to go there in all that sumptuousness. So I just stay away from that. I put a little bit of sugar, and I should probably do something a little better than that, in my tea, and that's pretty much what I do. I might do a little bit of dark chocolate, but I'm still kind of working on that intense sugar reduction. It's a wonderfly freeing experience. It really is fantastic. And I do want to say, a lot of times people will say, just have a little bit in moderation, have some of your weed and stuff. And I tend to be a little militant in terms of definitely not the wheat, because there are reasons. And Rob Wolf pointed out in his book, The Paleo Solution, that wheat doesn't want you to eat it. So it has built-in toxins. Now, if we eat a deer, well, it's already lost the battle. We've already, put it on our plate. Deer don't want to be eaten either, and so they have hooves and whatever they can to survive. But wheat also has toxins that it'll either try to, in his estimation, it'll try to sterilize you so there's no more of you terrible species coming around trying to eat it, or it will also mess up your gut to kill you. So there's some real reasons, and he just says that's just it, no gluten. Now, as far as grains go, there's going to be some different concepts regarding how much grains. And the Weston A. Price Foundation, they talk about grains in a slightly different way than the paleo, primal, or ancestral people. So I've mentioned a few of the resources we have, a few of the various ways of looking at paleo. So I just wanted to also say I'm very excited that the Ancestral Health Society, which you can join for $50 a year, really want to keep it as scientific as possible. And they are going to be publishing a peer-reviewed journal on these concepts to really look at whether or not paleo is sustainable and good for the human body today. We, of course, have a bazillion anecdotal evidence for how Ecotone wellness is. But do remember, just because Ecotone, does anyone know what an Ecotone is or an Ecotone? It's just real quickly, it's you got a beach and then you've got a forest, or any kind of two diverse environments, ecologies. Where they come together is a little ecology that's only specific to itself. Has a little of the forest, a little of the beach. And this has been the huge thing about paleo, primal, ancestral, is each one of us says, this is the way I'm going to do it. N equals 1, I'm going to do my own experimentation. I'm going to focus on this. I keep hearing Rob Wolf says this, Lauren Cordain says this, Mark Sisson says this. I'm going to do this because I feel that this is what's going to help me. Or my naturopathic doctor says this, my chiropractor or my doctor says this, I'm going to do it this way, or my wellness coach. So it's specific to you. And that's been kind of the takeaway with paleo, is it is specific to you, but yet there are principles of the Paleolithic era. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So following up on what she just finished on, talking about the principles, there's certain tenets that kind of fall under the broad umbrella of the paleo-primal movement. And Marty talked a lot about the nutrition, and we're going to go into that a little bit. But there's also a number of other ones that she alluded to. So given that the talk is primarily about food, we'll start there. So the first one, eat a diet free from processed, refined foods, processed and artificial sugars. Marty talked a lot about the problems with sugars and that we have way too much of them in our grocery stores, in our lives today. And also the aggravating proteins like lectins, gluten, saponins, phytates. So what does this mean? I mean, I can list all these things, but basically it means no gluten, as Marty mentioned, no sugar, no grains, legumes, soy, GMO, genetically modified organisms, processed dairy, or other refined foods. Like if you're going to the store and getting a candy bar, that's not what we're really going for. So what we are going for is to be as similar to stuff that existed more than 10,000 years ago, sort of in the 20 to 50,000 years ago, what our bodies are equipped to deal with. Food really in its unadulterated states. Again, no GMO, little hybridization, no pesticides, chemical treatments. One of the tenets, I would say, of the paleo food part is to try to get as much organic and grass-fed food as possible. And it might sound strange, but also pretty low in seeds, nuts, and even whole or raw dairy. And that may be surprising, but if you think about it, like how hard is that walnut shell? Or the pecan shell or whatever, and then how many of these can you collect and shell in one day if you don't have your little metal prongs, right? And they don't come pre-shelled at the grocery store. So as we're going out there hunting and gathering, we weren't eating nuts by the pound. Okay, so we also try to keep this pretty low. And as mentioned earlier, like some of us can digest dairy pretty well, and a lot of times we can digest it a lot better in its raw form when it hasn't been treated and I don't know, whatever they do to
homogenized and pasteurized.
Thank you. Yes. Right. So that's just kind of a little overview of what we look for and try to avoid with the food. So what's the second tenet? To sleep 8 hours a night. In the Paleolithic era, we didn't have electricity. So pretty much you were waking up when the sun came up, and unless you had built a fire, you were going to bed when the sun went down. You probably slept, depending on the season and depending on what part of the globe you're on, somewhere between 6 to 12 hours a night. Therefore, 8 is a good range. You really want to try to shoot over 8, and that goes in a little bit more to the stress, which I'll get to in a moment. So the third tenet of the paleo movement is to get adequate vitamin D. And of course, we can all go out there and pop a supplement, but why not just go and stand in the sun for a few minutes, having our arms exposed, chest and face? And everybody starts panicking about skin cancer and how much sunscreen do I have to put on. I looked on this website that does a calculation where you put in your latitude and longitude, the cloud cover, your skin type, and it tells you to get X amount of vitamin D per day, you need to spend how much time in the sun. And for Arizona, it was 4 minutes in the sun. So I think we can all manage 4 minutes once a day, not get skin cancer, and get our vitamin D. As hunter-gatherers, we spend a lot of time outside, hunting and gathering, and therefore we're exposed to the sun all day long. So this is not natural to be under this much shade all the way. So get a little bit of sun, do something good. This is really important for your immune system as well. You need vitamin D to have a stable immune system. All right, number 4, reduce stress to protect the adrenals and strengthen the immune system. As Marty mentioned, we live in a totally chronic, stressed out world. Our bodies are built to handle the fight or flight, but then to immediately either die because we were eaten, or to go back into rest and digest mode. So it was this quick burst of needed stress to give us the energy to flee or to fight, and then we go back to a rather comfortable life. Nowadays, with our phones ringing, TVs, constant noise, pressures from society, bosses, whatever, we live in a chronic, stressed out world. And over time, this breaks down your adrenal function, your hormonal function, and eventually, if you also have gut issues, a lot of times it's going to cause problems with your immune system. And this, in a lot of cases, may be the start of autoimmune conditions. So really, really, whatever works for you, meditation, yoga, sleeping, family, play, there's lots of choices. Do something to help reduce your stress. And if you get really in touch with your body, I think you can be able to start to realize when you're in that sympathetic, that fight or flight mode versus when you're in the rest and digest mode. And especially it's important before you go and eat a heavy meal to really settle back into your body to get into rest and digest mode. Otherwise, all the enzymes aren't being secreted to help you digest your food. Okay. That's my lecture on stress. Moving on. Number 5, move. It sounds simple, right? Move. I'm not telling you have to go join a CrossFit gym. Functional body movements, things that our hunter-gatherers would have done. What does that mean? That means walking a lot. That also means squatting. I'm not going to squat in a dress, but like, it's not natural to sit in a chair all day. It's not natural to sit on the throne to use the restroom. If we squat, it's really good for back pain, it's good for the digestive system, it's good for the hips, hip joints, knee joints. I'm not saying you're going to go out and do yogi squat the first time you try it, but start practicing. You can use like a rolled up blanket or pillow or something underneath your feet to get used to it. And then next thing, lifting heavy things. I mean, if you were hunting a bison and you had to carry it back to your shelter, like, you had to carry heavy things. Climbing trees, not so many trees to climb in Arizona, but go have fun, find some trees, and sprinting. If there's a predator coming after you, like, you were gonna be sprinting. Or if you need to go catch that bison for dinner, you were gonna be sprinting. So, not necessarily the first step, the other one's a good first, start with the walking, the squatting, but after a while, maybe you wanna sprint. And then take a break, and then maybe sprint again. But then, again, with the rest and digest, before you go and eat, make sure you go back into resting and digesting between the sprinting and the eating. Just my word to the wise, okay. And now, the 6th principle of paleo, make time for relationships. In our Paleolithic era, our society functioned solely based on relationships. No one could survive in that environment by themselves. They had to rely on their community members, on their partners, on their family. And that's what I find that we are lacking quite often here. So what I'm suggesting is we build a community, create deep, meaningful connections with the people around you. Unplug from the phone, the internet, the TV, and have a real face-to-face conversation. Be totally present and in the now. Actually listen when you're with a loved one. Try to be in the room and not have your mind be somewhere else, and that way you can establish a more deep and intimate relationship with the people around you. Try to be open about it. And honor those around you. This is how we create that community that supports us and supports them. And I think part of that is touch. So like if you have a partner, go give them a hug. If you have a friend, go give them a hug. Like we don't need to be as stoic as oftentimes we are. Just my 2 cents. But anyway, those are the 6 tenets of the paleo concept in my mind. So the question is, what if you start to incorporate some of these into your life, what might happen? Why should you care? What changes might you see? How might all of this affect you? So I wanted to look at a couple of case studies. I'm going to pull a couple of them out from the book, and then we're going to have a third live one. The first one, I'll pass around the book after I talk about it, so you guys can see the pictures, is Deanna from New York. Starting in the 3rd grade, she was overweight. By 18, she weighed 200 pounds and topped out at 250 pounds. Then she decided to chronic cardio. So what's chronic cardio? This is basically spending somewhere between 30 to 60 minutes a day on a treadmill or an elliptical or something, which also can burn out your adrenals so that you don't have your hormonal system working correctly. And what she found with this chronic cardio approach is it wasn't going to be sustainable in getting her to her weight and her health goals. And then she found the Paleo Primal, and what did she do? She incorporated the sleep requirements to really focus on getting the 8 hours of sleep. She ditched the chronic cardio, which is important, and changed her eating habits along the lines that we've been talking about. What was her result? She lost 125 pounds, literally half her body weight. She had more energy, better body composition in terms of muscle to fat ratio, better complexion, and thicker hair. So that's Deanna. And then the second one that I would like to point out from here is Wade. And again, I'll pass the book around so you can look at pictures. Wade had ulcers, reflux, a BMI of 47, asthma, sleep apnea, was on countless medications, used a sleep apnea machine at night. And with a month of quitting grains and sugars from going on the paleo diet, he saw improvements in his asthma and gastric reflux and lost 15 pounds in the first month. in the ensuing months, he got off all of his prescription medications, and over the course of 11 months, lost 105 pounds, which is about 8 to 12 pounds a month. Added strength training. He has no more sleep apnea and no more lethargy from insulin crutches. So I would like to bring our third case study up to talk about her experience with going paleo. Marty, would you like to share your story with us?
I would like to. Part of the reason why I get so excited, I'm kind of like a groupie. I was like beside myself at AHS, the Ancestral Health Symposium in 2011, and everybody handled me really well. I was like a groupie with Mark Sisson, and I looked at him and I said, you know, you're so much more pleasant looking than I thought you would be. And he handled me, you know, he didn't look like, hey, don't try to pick me up or something. He just said, well, thank you. But at any rate, I was so excited because I literally almost died because of the sleep apnea, and actually what I had was anaphylactic shock. And if you had, I couldn't remember, it was probably 6 or 7 times that I had it. And it was just horrible. Now, I haven't been tested to see that I obviously have a gluten sensitivity. I'm hoping I don't have celiac disease because even I stay away from gluten, but that's pretty bad stuff. One of the things with celiacs that I didn't know was that you get these, some people do, get these allergic reactions, and you're in just crushing abdominal pain. And so all I could do was lay in the bed for just hours until it passed. And actually, antihistamines helped me. Once I found out that antihistamines would kind of relieve it, I had much less anaphylactic shock or those experiences than I would have. Of course, I didn't know what was wrong. So I did have the sleep apnea every night. I also had horrible hives one time, and we were traveling, so I used, we were kind of on a budget. I was finishing up my master's degree and studying a variety of primitive cultures. And so I got what I thought was a little bit of poison oak on my arm, and so I treated it with melaleuca. And melaleuca is a fungus. Tea tree oil, people like that. But it is said right on the box. Some people are definitely allergic to this. So at any rate, I treated it, and my arm blew up so badly that I couldn't feed myself. And of course, needless to say, tea tree oil. Oh, it was terrible. And the people of the Melaleuca company that promotes all their Melaleuca products, they actually gave me my money back. Because by the time I figured it out, they said, oh, yeah. Some people, it's just devastating. Mm-hmm. And of course, you know, I thought I bought this fancy product and I was putting it on me. And it was just, and they were weeping sores. And then you look on the internet and you find weeping sores are associated with gluten. Also, I could tell when something was about to come up, the back of my knee would get welts on it. Similar to that, but not nearly as bad as that, the weeping sores. So all of these things, again, the extra weight. Also, when I was vegetarian, I exhibited some mental issues similar to what Nora Gedgaudas and other people talk about in terms of vegan, especially vegan problems with the lack of neurological support. And there was an incredible, very unpleasant intensity to me. I wasn't able to sing like I could normally. And it was really devastating to my life to lose some of that mental clarity that I'd had prior. You can see it in videos. Prior to becoming a vegetarian and then afterwards, everything just changed. You could see it in my intensity. So, not that I am not intense anymore. So, at any rate, I'm very, very excited about it. Of course, losing weight and the flexibility because I am always going around and working on my sort of say crunches, those two, but my squats, and just feeling that at almost 60, I'm doing a lot better than what most people would be doing at this age. So I'm just like over the moon about paleo.
Oh, I have a handout. So this is taken from the Practical Paleo book. It's a guide to the paleo foods that you can eat, since everybody loves the food topic. I was going to kind of elaborate, if you look down here at the bottom of the notes where she talks about nightshades, FODMAPs, and then there's also another one called autoimmune protocol within paleo. I was going to elaborate on all that, but the time is getting a little bit long and I'm sure everybody has questions, so I don't necessarily want to go into that unless somebody necessarily wants me to explain what nightshades or FODMAPs are. You can see from the code, they're highlighted on here. Any requests? Okay, I'm going to skip that part then. And skip right away to the takeaways and action steps. So what's the first thing you want to take away when you leave here? Number one thing that I would say, quit sugar. That's my bottom line. Quit the processed foods, quit the refined grains. If you need help with that, I think Marty would definitely recommend the 21-day sugar detox. It's a good way to start. That's listed on your resource sheet. You can look it up on either Google or on Facebook. So what does that mean when you go out to eat or even when you're eating home? Choose things like salads and vegetables over pasta and sandwiches. This is going to be your better choice for really nutrient-dense carbohydrates, but also as a way to feel full without the processed foods and the refined grains. And if you need help with that transition, I'm sure Marty can help you with that. My next recommendation would be to heal your gut and get enough sleep. Okay, this is really important for total body wellness, to the health of your immune system, to balanced hormones and good energy. And if you have transitioned to a paleo lifestyle and you're not seeing the improvements in your gut health or your hormones or whatever else, or you just think you need more support with that, you can talk to me and I can help you with that. My next thing, as you might have got from my earlier presentation, was reduce your stress. This is huge. I mean, if there was one thing non-food related, it would be stress. You gotta manage that as best as you can. And then what I want to say is, don't take this presentation as the final stop in your journey to wellness. We really just want this to be a launching point for jumping deeper into the paleo lifestyle. There's tons of resources out there. We've listed some on the resource handout. And of course, each of us here, including Nikki in the back, Marty, me, and I know many of you have been paleo for quite a while. So connect with each other and continue your study. This is only the beginning, and there's so much more to learn and take with you and implement in your life, should that be something that interests you and resonates you. With that, I think we'll take questions. Yes?
I noticed in health food stores now they're pushing in all their ingredients cane sugar, pure cane sugar. What's your views on that? I don't buy it, okay, but I do use locally produced honey. What's your views on those two?
My feeling on cane sugar is it's better than beet sugar because beet sugar is typically GMO and very high glycemic. Cane sugar, it gets that full flavor sweetness. There's a little bit more micronutrients to it that other sort of table sugars don't have. It's still pretty high glycemic, but I think it gives people the rich flavor who are needing to come off of white sugars. It's not my ideal choice, particularly if you're cooking at home. I think honey is a very good choice as far as if you are making your own stuff.
I feel good now.
If you can find local honey, and particularly local raw honey, I think that's going to be ideal. And I would also say maple syrup is a pretty good choice. And what's interesting is there's becoming lots and lots more alternative, usually plant leaf, like for example stevia extracts. I personally hate the way stevia tastes, but they're trying to get more things like stevia that don't have the glycemic index. So I would say keep your eye out for those, try them every now and again.